You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Engage.
78 years have passed since the days of the original USS Enterprise. Now a new Galaxy starship has been designed.
Transporter Chief, beam our listeners aboard. Welcome to Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast on BQN. I am your host, Counselor Amy Nelson, and today is a little bit like Remember Me. I am flying solo this week, and so it will be a little bit different format. And today I wanted to talk to you about the TNG's Writer's Guide, Special Edition, 1992 to 1993, created by Gene Roddenberry. Now, where did I get this Writer's Guide? I was visiting my good friend Steven in New York in June, actually, of this year. And we went to the Star Trek Original Set tour in Ticonderoga, New York. And Steven is such a great host. He has so many wonderful Star Trek collectibles and memorabilia and books. And one of the books that I found was this Writer's Guide. And I just opened it, fell in love with it. And Steven graciously said that I could take this home, and because I wanted to do a podcast about this writing. And so here we are. So I wanted to just start off by reading to you some very interesting parts and giving my comments as we go. So let's begin. It starts off with, these are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise, her continuing mission to explore strange new worlds and seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And then it has a beautiful picture of the Enterprise D. It says, during the years of Captain Kirk's Enterprise, 4% of the galaxy had been charted, not explored, since this would have required visits to approximately 11, okay, that's hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, oh my goodness, 11 billion stars in just the tiny portion of the galaxy. In fact, so huge is the galaxy that only 19% of it had been charted, much less explored by the time of this 24th century Star Trek. So much for the question, are there any new Star Trek stories to tell? Well, yes, there are. So for the script style, it says the format says we need a teaser and 5 acts. The teaser can run as long as 5 pages if necessary, but should not be shorter than 3. Each act should be approximately 10 to 11 script pages long. The total length of the first draft script should not be more than 58 pages. Because the style of the show is a fast-paced action/drama, long rambling scenes are to be avoided. The actual running time of each episode will be 43 minutes. Well, I find that is so very specific to the number of pages, to the fast pace, and exactly that 43-minute time period. And it says star dates. A star date is a 5-digit number followed by a decimal point and one more digit. Example 46254.7. The first 2 digits of the star date are 46. The 4 stands for the 24th century. The 6 indicates 6th season. The following 3 digits will progress consecutively during the course of the season from 000 to 999. The digit following the decimal point counts tenths of a day. Stardate 45254.4 therefore represents the noon hour on the 254th day of the 5th season. Because star dates in the 24th century are based on a complex mathematical formula, a precise correlation to Earth-based dating system is not possible. Well, I love that little caveat that it's like, don't even try and figure out star dates. All right. Captain's Log. The Captain's Log is a voiceover supplement to the narrative of our story. Example, Captain's Log, stardate 46501.3. The Enterprise is in polar orbit around the fourth moon of a Jupiter-sized planet. Other ships' logs provide necessary exposition for our stories. These can include captain's logs, medical log, science log, supplemental log, and personal log from any regular character. One purpose of the log entries is to move the story along as rapidly and economically as possible, with a few words sometimes doing the work of several scenes. It also allows our characters to annotate their personal responses and feelings about a situation as it is occurring. Log entries are usually introduced with a star date, except for supplemental logs. So, story believability. Believability is everything. It is the essential element. If you are in doubt about a scene, you can apply this simple test. Would I believe this if it were occurring today on the bridge of a battleship Missouri? Technology aside, if you wouldn't believe people interacting this way in the 20th century, then our audience probably won't believe it's happening in the 24th. In other words, people especially must be believable. The crew members of the Enterprise are intelligent, witty, thoughtful, compassionate, caring human beings. They do have human faults and weaknesses, but not as many or as severe as in our time. They have been selected for this mission because of their ability to transcend their human feelings. We should see in them the kind of people we aspire to be ourselves. Please remember that a major character in Star Trek has always been the Starship Enterprise and its mission. The ship is not just a vehicle, she is the touchstone by which all of our characters demonstrate who they are and what they're up to in the universe. I totally love that they recognize that the Enterprise and its mission is a character, and we definitely can see that in the series, in each series. So it gives us some examples of typical missions: exploration, the pushing out of new boundaries of the frontier, transporting important passengers, diplomatic and trade missions, patrolling along marked or disrupted boundaries, Romulan or Cardassian, mediation and negotiation, responding to planetary emergencies, responding to ships in distress, routine visits to planets, colonies, or space stations, scientific missions, defensive actions against threats to Federation planets, military maneuvers, testing of new equipment, training missions, serving as security force where requested, serving as goodwill ambassadors showing the flag, crisis control, terrorist/hostage rescues. Well, I think that list definitely describes many episodes of The Next Generation. That would actually be fun to sort of, talk about which episodes, look at mediation and negotiations. I think that's fun. All right, the story and what doesn't work. First, do not, written in all caps, write a story which does not principally involve our continuing characters. Yes, we do like to see interesting new characters, but only when used in addition to an interesting storyline centering on our Starship crew regulars. We do not do stories about psi forces or mysterious psychic powers. No matter how fantastic the events in a story, the explanation must be extrapolated from a generally accepted science theory. We have accepted the telepathy of Counselor Deanna Troi because many reputable scientists acknowledge the possibility of such abilities, but you will note that we have limited Troi to reading only emotions. We are not buying stories which cast our people and our vessels in the role of galaxy police, nor is our mission that of spreading 20th century Euro-American cultural values through the galaxy. Stay true to the prime directive. We are not in the business of toppling cultures that we do not approve of. We are not space meddlers. We are not buying stories about the original Star Trek characters, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Uhura, Chekhov, Scotty, or Sulu, or their descendants. As much as we love our original cast, they are our children after all. We want our audience's attention centered now on our new characters. We do not accept stories which are fantasy instead of science fiction. The difference between the two is profound. Despite the fact that both science fiction and fantasy can deal with unusual events, a science fiction story is based on an extrapolation of a generally accepted scientific fact or theory. Fantasy, which our format does not permit, need have no basis in reality. We are not interested in swords and sorcery. Knights and princesses, stalwart yeomen, and dragons are not science fiction for our purposes. Don't treat deep space as a local neighborhood. Too often, script ideas show characters bouncing from solar system to solar system, planet to planet, without the slightest comprehension of the distances involved or the technologies required to support such travel. Fine and even fun on Space Rangers, but not on Star Trek. Star Trek is not a melodrama. Melodrama is a writing style which does not require believable people. Believable people are the heart of good Star Trek script. Do not consider Klingons, Romulans, or Ferengi the only villains in space. We are determined not to copy ourselves. If, as dramaticists say, villains make the story, how about the other fascinating aliens to be found in a galaxy filled with billions of stars and planets? Beware of spaceship battles. They cost enormous amounts of money and are not really as interesting as people conflicts. Plots involving an entire civilization rarely work. What does work is to deal with the specific characters from another culture and their interactions with our starship characters. No mad scientist or stories in which technology is considered the villain. It doesn't make sense for a group of 24th century interstellar travelers whose lives depend on the successful workings of their technology to be Luddites, which I just learned from New Eden, Luddite. Owo was raised Luddite, and that's where they ignore and abstain from using any technology. And finally, avoid storms in space. It is best to seek expert technical advice before using or describing space storms. Such not only rarely happen, but do have nothing in common with Earth-ocean storms. Well, I don't know how much that is holding true, because, how many space anomalies are out there? That seems to be a storm in space, but, All right, you guys. So that sort of sets up the first part, and then they go into each of the characters. And oh my goodness, it's really quite wonderful. They have a lovely picture of each of the characters, and they have just a real quick synopsis. And so let's start with Patrick Stewart as Captain Jean-Luc Picard. Picard deserves the description distinguished. A born explorer and superbly experienced starship commander, he served on an incredible 22-year voyage as captain of the legendary deep space charting vessel, the USS Stargazer. Born in Paris, Picard comes from a family of winemakers. A brother, Robert, sister-in-law, Marie, and nephew, René, live on the family farm where he grew up just outside the village of La Barre, France. Picard is in prime physical condition. Definitely a romantic, he sincerely believes in concepts like honor and duty. Although on issues that affect the safety of his crew and starship, he can be completely pragmatic and tough as hell. Picard demands absolute authority in his role as starship captain. On the other hand, he has learned that there are many more times at which a leader needs advice, counsel, and even critical comment from his subordinates. He invites this and expects his crew to know when the situation does or does not permit it. Picard's vast experience has left him capable of arranging which one he needs when he needs it. He enjoys the privileges that go with his rank and vessel, also the eccentricities permitted. He knows that a certain amount of selfishness is healthy and necessary to the captain of a starship this vast, engaged in missions of this importance, and under so much emotional pressure. He does not hesitate to make his prejudices known to his crew, an example of which is insistence that he does not like children, although he has become more tolerant with the years. Picard enjoys reading old books and dabbles in ancient archaeology from time to time. Picard and Riker have a very close relationship. This is made necessary by the fact that number one knows his captain is to be obeyed instantly where necessary, and yet to be offered advice and even objections when it is more important. He also knows that Picard expects him to know when it is time for which. We see the true closeness of the relationship in the fact that Riker is able to judge what to do from Picard's slightest gesture or change in tone of voice. And we can also see that the first officer does not feel in the least humbled by this, because he knows the safety of the starship and crew depends on the instantaneous understanding between captain and his next in command. Riker also knows that he can expect and get the same thing someday from his own number one, and in fact considers serving under Picard one of the most fortunate things that has happened to him in Starfleet. Picard and Data have a relationship which comes the closest to mentor/student situation. He can be as strict toward Data as with anyone, or at least he believes he is doing so. In fact, Picard admires the unusual purity in the android's makeup and sometimes wishes he could be the same. Picard and Guinan met long before he took command of the Enterprise, back when he probed the edges of unknown space aboard the USS Stargazer. He is the one who selected this alien woman for her 10-forward assignment, and the only one aboard who knows her full background. We'll be aware that he is more than pleased with what she does aboard and that she amuses him greatly. Next, Jonathan Frakes as Commander William T. Riker. Will Riker is in his mid-30s, considered by Starfleet to be top-quality captain in training. His principal responsibilities are to constantly provide the captain with a top condition vessel and crew, and to command away teams. Like all first officers, Riker feels highly possessive about the Enterprise, considers it his ship, quite understandably since he is the one responsible for keeping the vessel polished and efficient. This creates no friction between Picard and Riker since, after all, Picard was the same kind of proud first officer before becoming a captain. Important. Riker and Picard treat each other with genuine respect. In his own areas of responsibility, Riker makes his own decisions without seeking the permission of the captain. While Riker seldom makes suggestions in the captain's area of strategic responsibility, he will occasionally comment on tactical matters, and when he does, Picard treats his comments as something of value to be rejected only for very important reasons. One of Riker's special charms, shared also by the actor, is the twinkle in his eye, which suggests a very special sense of humor. Riker is called number one by the captain. Number one is a term whose meaning has not changed appreciably since Earth's 17th century, when the second in command of sailing ships were called first officers, hence number one being used in the equivalent of first. Only rarely is he called that by other Enterprise crew members, and never by anyone not part of the Enterprise. Socially, his friends call him Will. Or in the first season, Troy calls him Bill. In the 17th century, the ship's number one was usually in command of landing parties. The life of a ship's captain has rarely been considered expendable. And that remains the same today, in the 24th century, where our own number one takes over the risk of acting as mission commander on planet landings and other away missions. It is Riker's responsibility not only to present his captain with a completely functional vessel, but also with a fully trained crew. Although he refers to these jobs only half humorously as his housekeeping functions, they are responsibilities that both yesterday's sailing ships and today's starships' first officers treat almost as sacred trusts. Number one knows that neither today nor tomorrow's captains can ever be completely effective without this kind of backup from their key subordinate. Riker accepts the responsibility for handling action assignments on planets and other away missions, not because he considers himself necessarily stronger or more agile than the captain, but rather because he knows that the success of the voyage and the mission would be considerably imperiled if the starships were to be deprived of Picard's vast knowledge and experience. Riker was born in Valdez, Alaska, and there is a strong outdoors pioneer quality in his personality. We like the fact that he carries a burning ambition to prove himself worthy of Picard's faith in him. Like the legendary 23rd century Kirk, when in his early 30s, our number one is very strong and agile. Also, like Captain Kirk, Riker has a healthy sex drive. Riker also plays the trombone, loves jazz music, and enjoys playing poker with his friends. Riker and Troy are old friends who had a tempestuous relationship sometime in the past. Somehow it didn't work, and with both of them on board the same vessel, and each with very important responsibilities on their own, that fire is now only embers, a warm and comfortable friendship. On away missions, Troy provides Riker with the same kind of advice she gives Picard when shipboard. She can usually pick up something of the emotional patterns and sometimes thought patterns of about half of the intelligent life forms encountered, at least enough to provide some hint of how that life form regards the Enterprise and its crew. LeVar Burton as Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge. He is racially black and birth defect blind, although he wears a prosthetic super high-tech device which allows his brain to see almost the full electromagnetic spectrum from infrared to ultraviolet. Compared to Geordi, other crew members seem to be the only ones who are really blind. The device is called Visor, Visually Instrument and Sensory Organ Replacement. We have duplicated what Geordi sees in several episodes, including Heart of Glory, The Enemy, and The Mind's Eye. Totally without optic nerves from birth, his intelligence and spirit captivated a top medical/electronics team. It led to the scientific effort to produce a sensor capable of modifying this electromagnetic spectrum and carrying these readings to the human brain. With his visor, Geordi's infrared vision can see the warmth of recent footprints, use ultraviolet light to see through an opaque substance, and much more. The only thing Geordi misses about real eyes has to do with the quotation he once heard about eyes being, quote, windows to the soul. After having spent a year on the Enterprise as the ship's engineering officer, Geordi was promoted to lieutenant commander. Having gained broad shipboard experiences with the other officers of various specialties, he is the right person for the job and enjoys working at the job he was trained for. Something about these experiences has left him with a delightful sense of humor. Unlike Riker's sense of humor, Geordi is highly vocal and visible and irreverent. For example, when something dangerous appears on the main viewer, Geordi is likely to say something like, "Uh-oh, big trouble." Picard long ago gave up trying to curb this tendency with annoyed looks. He accepts the fact now that Geordi is just too alive to be squelched easily. He is the starship's blithe spirit. He has 2 shipboard positions, depending on the circumstances. Number 1, the main engineering consoles of the engine room, and 2, the engineering station on the main bridge. The bridge console is activated only when Geordi is present. Oh, I didn't know that. Geordi and Riker work well together by the fact that Geordi is a particularly valuable member of an away team. He sees things that Riker needs to know about. In many ways, he's a walking tricorder. Geordi and Data are very close friends, drawn together by the fact they both approach life in unusual ways. In one episode, we see Geordi showing Data how to paint. Riker says this is one for the history books, a blind man teaching an android how to paint. On many occasions, Geordi will find that he knows Data better than anyone on board, including the ship's doctor, from a technological standpoint. Data considers Geordi his best friend. Michael Dorn as Lieutenant Worf. A Klingon, the only one to have graduated so far from Starfleet Academy, Worf is in charge of security for the USS Enterprise, a rather appropriate position for one from a race which considers military expertise the highest of all virtues. As a child, Worf lost his parents during a Romulan attack on the Klingon outpost at Khitomer. Worf survived and was rescued by human Starfleet officer Sergei Rozhenko. Rozhenko and his wife Helena adopted Worf and raised him as their son. Although his emotions and many of his values are Klingon, Worf is totally loyal to Picard and the Enterprise. Well, except for the time that he takes off his comm badge and kills Doros, but, that aside. In addition to his expertise on starship security, Worf is also of value to Picard as an expert on armaments of all types. He sees armaments much as a skilled musician is able to anticipate the sounds of an unknown musical instrument. Wow, I really like that description and didn't know that Worf was so well versed in armaments. Worf has little sense of humor, at least none that humans can translate. His speech pattern, however, can provide humor to us. He speaks in short, declarative statements. Oh, that is so true. Worf's one-liners. When on a world featuring lovely half-naked women, first season's Justice, he summed up his impressions with, "Nice planet." In the same episode, he confided that for him to have sexual relations with human-like females would be unwise. He would injure them. In the episode Hide and Q, we saw him deal with a Klingon female and saw a suggestion of what it meant. Worf is in fact very big and powerful and befits one of a warrior race. Worf once had a half-Klingon, half-human mate, Ambassador Kalar, with whom he shares a son, Alexander. Worf was reluctant to acknowledge his son as a result of his discommodation from Klingon High Council. See episode Sins of the Father, Reunion, and the 2-part episode Redemption. After the death of Kalar, Worf embraced his son and sent Alexander to live with his human grandparents. During the 5th season, Alexander returned to live on board the Enterprise with Worf. Worf has an internal battle raging between the values of his human upbringing and his Klingon heritage. He wants so much to be a true Klingon and wants to raise Alexander with the same values. Alexander, like his mother, often takes a different approach. Worf and Troi have a strong professional relationship as she helps him to better understand his human feelings and makes him aware that he is not so different from everybody else. Deanna has also been instrumental in helping Worf learn to be a good parent to Alexander. She has some more work to do on that. Being a single parent on board a starship is not easy, as Beverly knows, but especially for a Klingon. Worf trusts Troi very much, even with the life of his son. And that references the episode Ethics. Worf and Picard share a special relationship because Picard stood side by side with Worf during his discommendation from the Klingon High Council. While Picard does not always agree with Worf's perspective on various issues, he always respects his right to disagree, although he will not tolerate violations of Starfleet rules or Federation laws. Picard helped Worf regain his family honor in the 2-part episode Redemption, and he served as Chadich. Next, we have Gates McFadden as Dr. Beverly Crusher. An extremely attractive woman in her mid-40s, our ship's CMO worked long and hard to get her assignment to the Starship Enterprise. She is one of the most talented and insightful physicians in Starfleet. She and Picard have known each other for many years. Dr. Crusher is an intelligent and strong-willed diagnostician. She has a profound sense of medicine, the kind of skill that takes years to develop. Often she will use her diagnostic skills only to confirm what she already has seen, smelled, and sensed about a patient's condition. She is first and foremost a brilliant ship's doctor. She is a beautiful woman and looks considerably younger than her age. Her wit and intelligence have not escaped the captain's eye either, and though they have had their differences in the past, they have developed a solid friendship and mutual admiration. Beverly's husband, Jack Crusher, was killed while serving under Captain Picard on the USS Stargazer. Beverly has long since forgiven Picard of any anger she felt over Jack's death, and she knows it is not logical to blame him. We have seen flashbacks and references to Jack Crusher in several episodes, including Family and Violations. Working aboard the Enterprise under Picard's command may have been difficult at first, but Beverly wanted this assignment because she has an enviable Starfleet record which has earned her this kind of plum assignment. And a Starship Chief Medical Officer, as we know from the original series, is in no way considered an inferior to the captain. In fact, a CMO's authority is the only means other than full court-martial by which a captain can be relieved of duty. Beverly also has a 19-year-old son, Wesley, currently attending Starfleet Academy. Wesley lived on board the Enterprise with his mother when she signed on during the first season. Wesley stayed on the Enterprise during the second season, while Beverly left the ship to head Starfleet Medical for a year. Mother and son were reunited during the third season when she returned to the Enterprise. Beverly appreciates Picard's efforts at playing a strong father figure for her son. Wesley is a virtual genius when it comes to starship functions and space-time physics. See the episode Where No One Has Gone Before. That's the Traveler episode. During his 3.5 years aboard the Enterprise, he proved himself a valuable member of the ship's complement, and Captain Picard made him an acting ensign and later granted him a field promotion to full ensign. Wesley's dream came true when he was finally admitted to Starfleet Academy during the 4th season. Beverly is very proud of her son and looks forward to his visits to the Enterprise. Wesley has made guest appearances in episodes including The Game and First Duty. Marina Sirtis as Counselor Deanna Troi. I'll try not to gush too much as I read this. Lieutenant Commander Deanna Troi is a Starship counselor, which describes one of the most unique and important jobs of 24th century space travel. The shipboard position grew out of the increasing time Starfleet crews spent aboard their vessels as starships probed deeper and deeper into the galaxy. Starfleet Command realized that large number of people living in artificial shipboard environment could result in a pressure cooker effect unless life aboard was carefully planned and arranged. By the time of our series, starship journeys are lasting 20 years or more, and some are carrying 1,000 people or more. It became obvious what was needed. First, a shipboard community which duplicated as nearly as possible the security, challenges, and recreations of ordinary planet life. Next, since the crew members and inhabitants aboard the ship have to live in a compressed environment, it would be arranged with as much care as the other operating parts of the vessel. Enter the concepts of the ship's counselor, an expert in human engineering as much as the ship's chief engineer is an expert in the vessel's mechanics. Today, Starfleet Command would be puzzled that the concept of human engineering was not practiced centuries ago when giant business corporations began appearing. We think of Counselor Troi as just that, an expert in human engineering. I totally love that and have never thought of Troi that way, and now, yes, she is our human engineer. She watches over the emotional condition of the entire crew as carefully as an engine room crew watches over troubled areas such as steam pipes and fittings. She is an expert at recommending to Picard the right action to take when interpersonal conflicts arise among the various civilizations and Starfleet personnel who populate the ship and the differing cultures and beliefs that they represent. Troi is one half Betazoid. Her father was a Starfleet officer once stationed on the planet Betazed, who fell in love with one of the females of that world. Although full-blooded Betazoids are completely telepathic, witness Troi's mother, Lwaxana, hybrids like Troi can seldom read minds but can usually read emotions, depending on the complexity of a species' mind. Knowing what people were feeling led her into becoming an expert psychologist and ultimately into becoming a Starfleet counselor. Troi does not permanently occupy a position on the bridge, but is always available when Picard is confronted by a matter within her field of expertise. Troi does have an office elsewhere in the ship, but when she is on the bridge, she sits next to the captain and occasionally joins him in his ready room. Deanna loves chocolate. She's very good with children and once had a child of her own, though very briefly. See the episode, The Child. Her mother, Lwaxana Troi, occasionally visits the Enterprise, usually disrupting both the professional and private life aboard the ship. Lwaxana's flirtations with the captain and other male members of the crew are frequently an embarrassment to her daughter. Mrs. Troi, played by Majel Barrett Roddenberry, has appeared in several episodes including Haven, Manhunt, Menage a Troi, Half a Life, and Cost of Living. Troi and Picard are very close because Deanna's duties are so basic to Starship Command. One of Picard's strengths, and a key to his wisdom, is the fact he does not pretend to always know everything about everything. It is important that each of them understands the counselor's function. As they began working together, Picard quickly realized that Troi knows even his most intimate secrets, and has learned also that they are completely safe with her. After his experience with the Borg, Troi helped Picard rediscover himself, and it references the episode Family. Troi and Riker were once involved in a passionate love affair, but decided to step back once they were assigned to the same ship together. While their working relationship is professional, they still are very close friends. Brent Spiner as Lieutenant Commander Data. An android so perfectly fabricated that, on applying for a Starfleet commission years ago, he tested out as alive. This is a point of some pride to Data, whose Starfleet psychiatric profile, medical eyes only, lists the android as having the impossible dream of somehow, someday becoming human. Robotics and artificial intelligence are well advanced in this 24th century, resulting in intelligent machines of many sizes and shapes and functions. It is well recognized now that creating perfectly human-like machines would be more of a stunt than something of practical value. Having seen considerable of the galaxy's broad diversity of intelligent life, humans no longer consider Earth's Homo sapiens form to be evolutionary perfection. It is well accepted, however, that humans are very special and unique creatures. Although 24th century technology is capable of building robots that are physically identical to human form, it's still impossible to place the 100 zillion subtleties of human mind, instincts, needs, drives, etc. into a machine. Or at least this was considered to be so until Dr. Soong, often called the Einstein of cybernetics, put Data together in a remarkable laboratory on a far-off world, and it references Data lore and brothers. Data is so perfectly fabricated that from appearances, you would never know he is not composed of normal flesh and blood. Data's artificial skin is gold, his eyes an eerie yellow. Otherwise, his appearance is that of human in his mid-30s. Of even more importance, Data's mind, instincts, needs, etc. are remarkably human-like. Not perfectly so, but in that we find his character's special qualities. As a Starfleet Academy graduate, he is totally loyal to Starfleet and its regulations, but also capable of being puzzled enough by some Starfleet practices to ask a sensible question about them. He is not the ship's science officer. He is not at all Spock-like and never uses the word logical. He is broadly knowledgeable about science, but equally knowledgeable in almost everything else too. This is because of his phenomenal memory, which is one of the reasons he was originally created. Well, I found that last paragraph really quite interesting because so many times we have equated Data to be that TNG's Spock. And here in the Writer's Guide, we are definitely not supposed to make that comparison. And interesting that Data never uses the word logical. Again, I'm pretty sure that Data has used the word logical, but maybe not until after this special edition was released, 92-93. Data serves the vessel as something of a walking library with commensurate mental dexterity and reading speed. The crew at times uses him almost as an information console. He is also enormously strong and agile. Because Data cannot feel human emotions, it is his greatest desire or wish to be human. This is an ongoing quest for Data as he learns more and more about human nuances. He is completely incapable of understanding human humor, and thus has become a running joke in this series. Through the experiences, he has learned many lessons about human behavior. See the episodes Measure of a Man, The Offspring, Data's Day, and In Theory. His most exciting character facets, however, involve his weaknesses and the things he cannot do. He is anything but a cool character and constantly exhibits an almost childlike naivete, which in fact has become something of his trademark. He is also literal to a fault. Since he never had a childhood, Data is fascinated by kids and often finds them to be good teachers of human nature. See Pen Pals and Hero Worship. Probably, however, he is more fascinated by human adults, no doubt because of his dream to be one of them. Data and Geordi are best friends, a friendship having developed as a result of their both seeing things from a somewhat off-center perspective. Geordi is Data's unofficial tutor on becoming more human, and only Data knows as much about the mechanics of the Enterprise as her chief engineer. Data and Picard. The android is puzzled by Picard's wisdom, a special human quality that has to do with judgment and a host of intangibles which are not facts or other information. Data looks to Picard as a role model and attempts to emulate his captain's leadership qualities. Picard has even allowed Data to command his own starship, see the episode Redemption Part 2, in addition to some away missions. And our final character, Whoopi Goldberg, as Guinan. A continuing character, Guinan is an alien female from a very distant planet. Picard, when a young officer on the USS Stargazer, was fascinated by members of her life form, which he met. Now captain of one of the vast Galaxy-class starships with its immense crew and facilities, he has discovered that this very kind of person would be a perfect choice to operate the 10 Forward facility. Never one to delay a decision once made, Picard has traded upon his prestige as Starfleet to bring in one of these life forms to handle the 10 Forward assignment. Picard realizes he is risking an unusual kind of person in an unusual assignment, but is willing to take the risk. He knows, of course, that neither the assignment nor the person is critical to do Enterprise's mission or functioning, but he feels that his people and his vessel are better off for having them, and he considers this sufficient reason. The best thing about 10 Forward, in the opinion of most crew members, is Guinan. Her presence and ways perfectly complement what the facility was designed to do, i.e. act as an antidote to the pressure cooker confinement of a starship by furnishing a place for off-duty relaxation away from the cares of deep space and operating the starship. In an early episode, Data will have researched terms like bar and cocktail lounge from the times when the drug alcohol was served, and has discovered that Guinan performs almost exactly as the once renowned sociology specialists known as bartenders were said to do. We do not know Guinan's age. She is a humanoid with many similarities to the human form, but also with some subtle differences that puzzle Dr. Crusher. Although she looks young in some ways, she also carries a feeling of great age and experience. She combines the loveliness of wisdom and child. We'll learn from Picard that she is at least several centuries old. Guinan's most noticeable quality is serenity of character. This quality is there even when she is laughing. It confers a special kind of beauty on her. She is a born catalyst, able to fit into a customer's mood. She seems to know whether a joke or some piece of information or a bit of philosophy will make that particular crew member feel better. This doesn't at all duplicate Counselor Troy's Betazoid ability to sense the emotions of others. Well, there you have it. Guinan is not doing Troy's job. Okay, it is written right there from the writer's guide. We have it in black and white. What is it about Guinan's life form that interests Captain Picard? Eventually, somebody will discover the answer and will decide to keep their discovery confidential. As Picard discovered long ago, Guinan is a member of a listener life form. Something about her life form encourages others to be honest when they speak, and perhaps old-style bartenders had something of the same ability. Well, listeners, that's all I wanted to read to you from the Writer's Guide. If we need another single episode, then I have the rest of the book to read to you. But I found it very interesting to go through our main characters and get some extra information about it.
Incoming transmission.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. And let me know, do you have the Writer's and Director's Guide for the next generation? I'd love to know. You can also tweet your thoughts at Galaxy Class Pod, or you can follow the entire network on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That really does help others to find the show. You can find me here co-hosting Union Federation, which talks about the Orville and new Star Trek. I'm also co-hosting All Good Things, which is just talking about all of Star Trek. It's a really fun show with different series where we talk about different... what are we doing? We have like these series where like holodeck series. And so we get to talk about holodeck episodes in different series. It's really quite fun. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, and of course in the BQN Collective. And guys, please join us there. It's our Facebook group for our listeners. We have fun conversations and discussions. We have an Apple Watch challenge brought to you each week by our own future Dr. M. And that's really been fun. I just have to say, I was 4th place this week. Woohoo!
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We are putting out more exclusive content for our patrons that you won't want to miss, like It's Green or Amy's Math Moments. Now, listeners, I did just release another Part 3, Amy's Math Moments. So please join patreon.com/BQN, where you can listen to those little math moments, have early release, and It's Green with Mark White. At this time, we would like to thank our executive producers who make this all possible, and a special thanks to our awesome associate producers, Jim McMahon and Davey Willett. We are so grateful for your support. We would also like to thank Mark White for our artwork each and every week. Thank you for beaming aboard Galaxy Class. And until next time, great joy and gratitude.
Engage.